Los Angeles, California. A private martial arts dojo in Chinatown. Late evening, September 1972. The building doesn't advertise. No sign on the door, no listing in phone directories, just a red door on a side street that most people walk past without noticing. Inside, the space is simple. Wooden floors worn smooth by decades of footwork, mirrors on one wall, heavy bags in the corner, the faint smell of incense mixing with sweat. This is where serious martial artists come when they want privacy, when they need to train without cameras or crowds or the performance aspect that infects most public schools. Bruce Lee is here because James Coburn asked him to come. They've been training together for years, and tonight, James mentioned he wanted Bruce to meet someone different. Someone who would challenge Bruce's thinking in ways that tournament fighters and strongmen and bodyguards couldn't. Bruce arrives at 9 o'clock, wearing his usual training clothes, black cotton pants, a simple shirt, canvas shoes. He enters through the red door and finds James in conversation with a woman Bruce has never seen before. She's in her late 20s, maybe 5'6", perhaps 135 pounds. Compact build, clearly athletic but not bulky. Dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She's wearing military-style cargo pants and a fitted tank top that shows arms marked with scars. Not the decorative scars of someone trying to look tough, but the functional scars of someone who's been cut, burned, injured in ways that left permanent marks. Her face is striking. Strong features, olive skin, dark eyes that assess Bruce the moment he enters. Not hostile, not friendly, just evaluating. The way soldiers evaluate potential threats. The way people who've survived violence recognize other people who understand violence. James makes introductions. Bruce, this is Sergeant Maya Brenner, Israeli Defense Forces, recently rotated back from active duty. Maya, this is Bruce Lee. They shake hands. Her grip is firm, testing, similar to how men test each other but with subtle differences. She's not trying to prove strength. She's establishing that she won't be intimidated by his reputation or his presence. James has told me about you, Maya says. Her English carries a Hebrew accent, each word pronounced with precision. He says you're the real thing, that you understand combat beyond what most martial artists comprehend. James is a generous friend, Bruce responds. He exaggerates. I don't think so, Maya says, and her eyes haven't left Bruce's face. She's still reading him, still assessing. I've watched your demonstrations. The speed is impressive. The philosophy is interesting. But I have questions. What kind of questions? Maya walks to the center of the training floor. Her movement has that specific quality of someone trained for combat operations. Economical, balanced, aware of surroundings. In Israel, we train Krav Maga. You know this system? I know of it, Bruce confirms. Military combat system developed for the IDF. Focused on practical techniques for real situations. Yes, but it's more than techniques. It's philosophy. We don't train for sport. We don't train for demonstration. We train for survival. When I was deployed in the West Bank, the threats were real. Knives, guns, multiple attackers, situations where hesitation means death. Everything we learned had to work under those conditions. Not in a gym, not in a tournament. In reality. Bruce nods, listening carefully. This is different from the usual challenges he faces. Most skeptics question his effectiveness because they've invested in their own systems and need to defend that investment. But Maya isn't defending anything. She's simply stating her experience and wondering how it relates to what Bruce teaches. Your question then, Bruce says, is whether my approach works in survival situations. My question, Maya corrects, is whether your approach is training for survival or training for something else. There's a difference. I've seen martial artists who are beautiful to watch, who move like dancers, who understand forms and techniques, but put them in an alley with someone trying to kill them, and that beauty becomes useless. They freeze. They try to apply techniques that require cooperation. They die. James Coburn has been quiet during this exchange, but now he speaks up. Maya, Bruce isn't like the martial artists you're describing. What he teaches is— Let her speak, Bruce interrupts gently. I want to understand her perspective, Maya continues. In Krav Maga, we don't have belts. We don't have forms. We don't spend time on things that won't save our lives. If a technique requires perfect conditions to work, we discard it. If a movement looks impressive but leaves you vulnerable, we eliminate it. Everything is about one question. Does this increase my chance of survival? If yes, we keep it. If no, we remove it. That's the philosophy. That sounds very similar to Jeet Kune, Bruce observes. Maybe, Maya says, but there's a difference. You've developed your system through training, through studying different arts, through philosophy and thinking. I respect that. But I've developed my understanding through application, through situations where if I made the wrong choice, I wouldn't be standing here. That's not better or worse. It's just different. And I want to know if what you teach would work for someone like me, someone who doesn't fight for sport or demonstration, someone who fights for survival. This story, what's unfolding in this private dojo between a martial arts philosopher and a combat veteran, almost stayed buried. Only 9 people witnessed it. But those 9 couldn't forget what they learned. If stories like this matter to you, if you want to understand how Bruce Lee's philosophy held up against real survival experience, subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment. Tell us what city you're watching from. We're building a community that understands combat goes deeper than technique. Bruce walks to the center of the floor, facing Maya. They're roughly the same size, same weight. This isn't about overcoming a massive physical disadvantage. This is about something more fundamental. You want to test whether my approach works against someone trained for survival. Yes, Maya confirms, but not a demonstration, not a choreographed exchange, real intent. You trying to control me trying to survive, the way it would happen if we met in a hostile situation. No rules. Rules are for sport, Maya says. Survival doesn't have rules. But we're not trying to injure each other. We're trying to understand something. So we go until one of us establishes complete control or until we both recognize what's been proven. Bruce considers this carefully. He's faced many challenges, but this one is different. Maya isn't trying to prove her system is superior. She's trying to understand if his system addresses the same reality hers does. That's a more sophisticated question than most people ask. All right, Bruce agrees, but I need you to understand something first. What you've experienced in the West Bank, the survival situations you've faced, those are legitimate. Your training has kept you alive. Nothing I show you tonight diminishes that. This is exploration, not confrontation. Understood, Maya nods. When I attack you, I'll attack the way I would attack a threat. You respond however your training tells you to respond. We'll both learn something. James Coburn positions himself near the wall where he can see everything. The other people in the dojo, 6 martial artists who train here regularly, and 2 visitors who happen to be present, gather around the edges of the floor. 9 witnesses total. They understand they're about to see something unusual. Maya doesn't take a formal stance. She simply stands naturally, weight balanced, hands relaxed at her sides. To someone trained in classical martial arts, she looks unprepared. To someone trained in combat, she looks ready for anything. Bruce recognizes the difference immediately. This woman isn't going to attack with telegraphed techniques. She's going to attack the way soldiers attack, sudden, violent, committed. And that's exactly what happens. Maya moves without warning. No preparation, no chambering, no indication. She closes the distance between them in 2 explosive steps and her hand drives toward Bruce's throat. Not a punch, not a strike. A direct attack to a vital target with full intent to damage. Bruce's head moves maybe 3 inches. Minimal motion, just enough to let Maya's hand pass by his neck. But he doesn't just evade. His hand comes up and intercepts Maya's wrist, not grabbing, just redirecting. Maya adapts instantly. Her other hand comes up, targeting Bruce's eyes. This is Krav Maga principle. Attack vulnerable targets without hesitation. Eyes, throat, groin. Disable the threat as quickly as possible. Bruce slips the eye strike, and suddenly he's inside Maya's guard. His hand touches her shoulder, and she feels something that all her combat training didn't prepare her for. Her balance disappears, not because Bruce pushed or pulled with strength. The touch just created an angle that physics couldn't argue with. She adjusts immediately, stepping back to regain structure. Bruce doesn't pursue aggressively. He simply maintains position, ready but not attacking. They reset. Maya's expression has changed slightly. Not concern, but increased focus. That first exchange taught her something. Bruce's speed is real. His understanding of structure is sophisticated. This won't be simple. She attacks again, this time with a low kick aimed at Bruce's knee. Krav Maga teaches to destroy mobility first. If your opponent can't stand, they can't fight. The kick is fast, committed, the kind that causes real damage. Bruce's leg moves. Not a block, not a check. He just lifts his foot and lets the kick pass underneath, then uses Maya's momentary imbalance to close distance again. His hand moves toward her solar plexus, that same strike he's used on wrestlers and strongmen and bodyguards. But Maya has trained for exactly this kind of attack. She twists, absorbs the impact across her ribs instead of directly on the nerve cluster. It still hurts, still drives air from her lungs, but doesn't disable her the way it would have if it landed perfectly. She counterattacks immediately, elbow to Bruce's head. If it connects, the fight is over. Elbows are brutal weapons at close range. Bruce ducks under the elbow, and suddenly he's behind Maya. His arm wraps around her neck, not in a choke, but in a control position. For a moment, he has complete dominance. If this were real, if he applied pressure, she would lose consciousness in seconds. But Maya doesn't panic. She drops her weight suddenly, changing the dynamics of the position. Her hand reaches back, finds Bruce's face, targets his eyes. Even in a losing position, Krav Maga teaches to attack. Always attack. Bruce releases immediately and steps back. The eye attack was controlled. She didn't actually try to blind him, but the intent was clear. In a real situation, she would have. They separate, both breathing harder now. That exchange lasted maybe 10 seconds, but involved multiple attacks, counters, and adaptations. Both of them learned something. Before I continue with what happened next, I need to know something. Are you feeling what that dojo felt? That moment when two completely different combat philosophies test each other honestly? Drop a comment. Tell us where you're in the world and whether this is revealing something unexpected. Because what these two warriors discover in the next exchange, this is where survival meets philosophy. Maya speaks first, still catching her breath. Your speed is legitimate. Your understanding of structure is sophisticated. But you're still thinking in techniques. I felt it when you took my back. You established position the way grapplers establish position. Textbook control. But in survival, there's no textbook. There's only what works in chaos. You're right, Bruce acknowledges. I was applying a principle I've trained. But you responded with something I haven't encountered often. The willingness to accept injury to create opportunity. That eye attack. You would have damaged yourself getting out of that position, but you didn't hesitate. Because in survival, injury is acceptable if it prevents death, Maya explains. I've been shot, stabbed, broken bones. All of that heals. Death doesn't. So if I'm in a bad position, I accept that I might get hurt escaping. That acceptance is what most martial artists lack. They train to avoid injury so completely that when injury is unavoidable, they freeze. Bruce considers this carefully. Show me something. Attack me the way you would attack if I were an actual threat. If I were someone trying to kill you and you had no choice but to respond with lethal intent. Maya hesitates. Bruce, that kind of attack could seriously hurt you. I understand. But control it at the last moment. I need to feel the intent, the commitment, the reality of survival aggression. Otherwise, I can't truly understand what you're trying to teach me. Maya looks at James Coburn, who nods slightly. She turns back to Bruce. All right, but remember, you asked for this. What happens next is different from everything that came before. Maya doesn't attack with martial arts technique. She attacks with violence. Pure, distilled, survival violence. She rushes forward and her knee drives toward Bruce's groin with full force. Simultaneously, her fingers target his eyes. Her other hand reaches for anything she can grab to pull him off balance. She's not trying to look good. She's not trying to demonstrate technique. She's trying to overwhelm, to damage, to survive by any means necessary. Bruce responds in a way none of the witnesses expected. He doesn't try to counter with technique. He doesn't try to establish position or demonstrate superior skill. He simply prevents Maya from accomplishing her objectives using the absolute minimum necessary motion. The knee strike gets redirected by inches. The eye attack gets intercepted before it reaches the target. The grab attempt closes on air because Bruce's body has shifted to an angle where her hand can't reach effectively. And through all of this, Bruce doesn't counterattack, doesn't try to submit her or strike her or establish dominance. He just negates her attacks while maintaining complete calm. They separate again after maybe 8 seconds of this intense exchange. Maya is breathing hard, frustrated. She just threw everything she had at someone, attacked with complete survival intent, and accomplished nothing. Not because Bruce overwhelmed her with superior force, but because he simply wasn't where she needed him to be. How? She asks, and there's genuine confusion in her voice. I attacked vital targets. I committed completely. I wasn't thinking about technique or looking impressive. I was trying to survive. And you just negated it, without even seeming to try. Bruce walks over to the wall and picks up a water bottle, takes a drink, offers it to Maya. She accepts, drinks, still processing what just happened. "You did everything correctly," Bruce says. "Your attacks were valid. Your intent was real. Your commitment was total. But you're still operating within a framework, even if that framework is survival." "How is survival a framework?" Maya challenges. "Survival is reality. It's the opposite of framework. Survival is an objective," Bruce clarifies. "But how you pursue that objective, the techniques you use, the targets you prioritize, the responses you've trained, these create patterns, and patterns can be read. When you attacked me just now, I didn't defend against specific techniques. I defended against patterns, the pattern of targeting vital areas, the pattern of committing with violence to overwhelm, the pattern of accepting injury to create opportunity. All of these are valid patterns, but they're still patterns." Maya sits down on the floor, not from exhaustion, but from the mental weight of what she's processing. "So, what you're saying is, even survival training creates blind spots." "Yes," Bruce confirms, sitting down across from her. "Not because survival training is wrong. It's incredibly effective at what it does. But it optimizes for specific scenarios, multiple attackers, weapons, ambush situations. It teaches you to respond to those scenarios with maximum efficiency. But in doing so, it creates predictable responses. And predictable means exploitable. But if someone trained the way you train," Maya argues, "and they faced a real survival situation, would they survive? Or would they try to apply philosophy when they need to apply violence?" This is the real question, the one that matters more than any demonstration. Bruce thinks carefully before answering. "The person who survives is the person who can adapt to reality as it presents itself. Your training gives you tools for specific situations. My training tries to develop adaptability beyond specific situations. Neither is complete. The most complete approach would combine your understanding of survival realities with the adaptability I try to cultivate." One of the martial artists watching from the edge of the floor speaks up. "So what you're both saying is, you each have pieces of the answer, but neither has the whole answer?" "Exactly," Bruce and Maya say simultaneously, then look at each other and smile. It's the first moment of lightness since this intense exchange began. Maya stands up, walks to her bag in the corner, pulls out a folder. "I brought something. After James told me about you, I did research. I found military reports about hand-to-hand combat encounters in various conflicts. Korea, Vietnam, Israeli operations, reports written by soldiers about what actually happened when fighting occurred. Would you want to read them?" "Very much," Bruce says, genuinely interested. "And would you teach me?" Maya asks. "Not to replace what I know, but to expand it, to help me see the patterns I'm creating that I don't recognize, to develop the adaptability you're talking about." "I'd be honored," Bruce responds, "but only if you also teach me. Your experience with real violence, with actual survival situations, that's knowledge I need. Most of what I've developed comes from training, from study, from controlled tests. You've applied these principles when your life depended on them. That's invaluable." They shake hands again, but this time it's different. Not testing, not challenging. Mutual respect, teacher to teacher, warrior to warrior. Over the next 6 months, Maya becomes one of Bruce's regular training partners. She brings her military reports, shares her experiences, helps Bruce understand the realities of combat that most martial artists never encounter. Bruce teaches her to recognize her patterns, to expand her responses, to develop adaptability that enhances rather than replaces her survival training. Something remarkable happens. Maya's Krav Maga instructors notice changes in her teaching. She's still teaching the core principles, still focusing on survival, but she's adding elements of awareness and adaptability that weren't there before. Her students become more effective not because they learn new techniques, but because they learn to recognize their own patterns and adapt beyond them. Similarly, Bruce incorporates Maya's insights into his teaching. He starts emphasizing the psychological elements of survival more explicitly, the willingness to accept injury, the commitment to violence when necessary, the understanding that in real situations, philosophy must serve survival, not the other way around. That's the truth they never taught you in martial arts schools or military training. That survival and philosophy aren't opposites. They're complementary. Each provides what the other lacks. If this story revealed something essential about combat, Subscribe so you never miss these lessons. Comment below, tell us where you're watching from and what this changed for you. Let's build this understanding together, one truth at a time. The 9 witnesses who were present that night each remember it differently. Some focus on the physical exchange, the speed, the techniques. Others remember the philosophical discussion, the mutual respect, the acknowledgement that neither approach was complete. But they all agree on one thing. They watched 2 masters from completely different backgrounds test each other honestly, and both emerge improved by the experience. Years later, after Bruce Lee's death, Maya is interviewed for a documentary about combat systems. She's asked whether Jeet Kune Do is effective for military applications. Her answer is measured and thoughtful. Bruce Lee taught me that survival training, no matter how realistic, still creates patterns. And those patterns can become limitations if you're not aware of them. What he offered wasn't a replacement for survival training. It was an expansion of it. The ability to adapt beyond your trained responses when situations demand it. That adaptability, combined with survival commitment, creates something more complete than either approach alone. The interviewer asks if she considers herself a student of Bruce Lee. Maya's response is immediate. I consider us mutual students. He taught me about patterns and adaptability. I taught him about survival realities and committed violence. We both became more complete martial artists through that exchange. That's what real teaching looks like. Not one person elevated above another, but 2 people sharing knowledge honestly and growing together. The encounter in that Chinatown dojo becomes a footnote in Bruce Lee's legend, known only to a handful of people. But for those 9 witnesses, it represents something essential about what martial arts can be when ego is removed and honest exploration remains. Maya didn't challenge Bruce to prove him wrong. Bruce didn't accept to prove himself right. They both engaged to understand truth more completely. And that truth, more than any technique or philosophy or system, is the real legacy. A female Israeli soldier and a Chinese martial artist from completely different worlds, discovering that survival and philosophy serve each other. That training for reality and training for adaptability aren't contradictory, but complementary. That the most complete warrior is one who recognizes that no single approach contains all truth. 9 people witnessed that discovery. But the lesson belongs to everyone willing to understand that mastery means knowing what you don't know and seeking to learn it from anyone who can teach, regardless of where that teaching comes from.